right, Brad, hi. Thanks for joining. How are you doing?
Good, Ian. Good to see you.
Just wanted to get together really with you. We've been working with you since, I think, 2016. Wave's grown hugely. And I know that I think when we worked with you on that sort of team development, it was only a handful of people. There's probably people out there who don't know anything about Wave, maybe people from outside of Myanmar, outside of Southeast Asia. So I just wondered if you could maybe give a bit of a perspective on the sort of size of the team, how things have grown, the number of agents, customers, and the number of transactions, really, because it's a huge business now.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, so we've been going now since August 2016 when we got our license to launch in Myanmar. We were the first mobile financial services provider to launch that wasn't launching under the bank model. And we've seen really strong growth month on month, actually all the way through since August 2016. So we're now at around 57,000 agents. We moved last year around 4.3 billion US in money transfer, which is about 6 or 7% of Myanmar GDP. And we're doing this really through a staff of about 250. So we have about 80 or 90 staff out in the field, and they're really covering every part of the country, our territory sales managers. And then I've got about 170 staff in our head office who are a mixture of technology, product, finance, sales, marketing, and those sort of head office functions.
Wow. I think, how many people were in the team when we worked with you back in 2016?
Oh, wow. I mean, when we did that first workshop, we would have only been, I would say, no more than 35, 40 people.
Yeah.
So we've seen big growth. And in fact, we're still hiring today. So we actually have quite a few open roles. So even with everything that's happening,
okay.
We're hiring people, we're onboarding people remotely, and that's working pretty well.
Do you want to make this a recruitment opportunity?
Yeah, very happy. If you've got technology skills, developers, product owners, UX designers, these sort of skills, yeah, we're always looking for these sort of people. Data scientists, always looking for these sort of people.
Now, the reason for wanting to chat to you, very experienced man, CEO of Wave. It's a really challenging time at the moment for everyone, all businesses around the world, I think. Either that businesses in certain sectors have sort of expanded, but having to move into a different kind of way of working, or of course people are, either out of work or things have been put on hold. I just wanted to get your ideas really of your response to the COVID situation in terms of either, the team or yourself as a leader as well.
Sure. I mean, the first thing, of course, always is the health and safety of staff. So, we made a decision to work from home for our head office staff very early. So we've been at home now since the 23rd of March. We ran a session, or we ran a day the week before to actually see whether we would have any problems with working from home. And that rehearsal went pretty well. Our sales staff, who we are very, very focused on their welfare. We've made sure that they've had access to all the safety equipment they need, face masks, sanitizers, these type of things. Mm-hmm. And we've also started distributing this kit and this material out to our agents around the country as well. So it's very important that, and we have a daily call where I have a BCP team where we're reviewing these issues and also making sure that if staff are presenting as sick, that we are very quickly understanding that, working with our partners at Panlang Hospital, and if necessary, we can do contact tracing in conjunction with our partners to make sure that we can track that very quickly. Wow. So that's the health and safety side. On the business side, I think we were very fortunate to have moved to Office 365 mm-hmm. Within the last 12 months. So I don't think I'd used Microsoft Teams before we started working from home, and I'm using it now for probably 8 to 10 hours every day on calls. Right. So it's been an extraordinary change. I think, for us, it's we have two products. We have an over-the-counter money transfer product. Mm-hmm. And certainly, if there are less shops, then there will be impact of that. But on the digital side, which is through our WavePay app, we're seeing significant growth as Myanmar really starts to digitize very, very quickly. So we have been overwhelmed with calls from partners, overwhelmed with calls from NGOs and donor organisations, all really to find ways that we can actually help them digitise. We made an announcement very early as well that we would make any NGO or donor disbursements through the period of this crisis free. And so that's actually caused a number of NGO and donor organisations to make contact with us. And we're now starting doing disbursement programs that will roll out in the coming months. So we're very proud of that work that we do, because as an essential service in Myanmar, we recognise that if the Myanmar people can't move money around the country, then it's going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah, certainly in this situation, I know that, of course, your business is going to be busier than normal with sort of remote payments, especially to more rural communities as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Banks closing or shortening hours. I mean, banks in Myanmar at the moment, are they the high street banks, if you like, are they shortening hours? Are they closed? Are they opened?
Yeah, so the central banks asked the banks to shorten their hours to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah.
It hasn't impacted us really that much. I mean, we do rely on the banking system for our liquidity, our distributors to the agents. And so, we work very closely with our partner, Yoma Bank, who do the majority of our cash management.
Okay.
So I think, we had plans in place to sort of deal with that, and we're sort of working on those now. So.
Great. So when I suppose it was around about a month ago in Myanmar, because Myanmar was one of the last countries to have sort of cases of COVID, positive cases of COVID. When things started over there around about a month ago, what did you find, sort of what challenges did you or the team face? Of course, remote working you started, but what kind of challenges did you face, and how did you overcome those as a team? What were some of the key challenges?
I think one of the key challenges, I keep in very regular contact with my leadership team.
Yeah.
As I said, we have a daily call. I do a lot of individual check-ins with them over the course of the day. But it's very difficult working remotely to know whether that level of communication is cascading down through your teams. Sure. And one of the things that I've said to my team, to my leadership team, is that they need to make sure that the level of leadership below them knows the personal circumstances of every individual employee, so we can assist them or support them or help them regardless of the situation. So I think learning really to over communicate, I think, is one of the key things. Like where we've had balls that have been dropped on particular issues, you can always trace it back to the fact that that hallway conversation is not possible, that communication wasn't perhaps as good as it should have been on something, and that communication needed to be done. So that's really a mantra of ours at the moment, is over communication. And it's difficult when you're on conference calls, video calls all day, to then go and make those individual calls to make sure that communication occurs. But that's been a challenge for sure. I think one of the challenges is that we discover very quickly that there are a number of people that really don't have much to do when you're not working in an office. We have an event team, for example. When you're not running events, what do you do with the events team? So I think we've been pretty clever with that, because we've gone through and actually looked at the workload of every individual staff member, and we've redeployed people inside the business where they didn't actually have that much work on. And I think for us, what's great about that is that we're not having people sitting at home bored. Secondly, we're keeping them very gainfully employed. And thirdly, we're not having to find additional resources to help with that. Yeah. And there's a couple of examples where we're doing that. Our call center provider had some challenges getting enough contractors. So we retrained all the staff to become call center operators from their homes. So my EA, for example, Point, who has been taking phone calls as a call center operator for us, which I think is a fantastic example of how we've been able to redeploy people. And for her, she's loving it, because she's actually getting some really good understanding and knowledge of how the business operates as well. Yeah.
And I think also, once the situation calms down in the future, I think that's a great thing for people to sort of have an opportunity for new skills or see other parts of the business as well, and not to just be pigeonholed into their usual role. So that's a growth opportunity for people, I think, as well.
Absolutely, and so we redeployed now. I mean, the people doing call centers doing it as a part-time job, but we've redeployed probably half a dozen or more people now into different teams and they know that they're only going to stay in that team until their day job starts again. But,
sure.
Yeah, that cross-training has been really good.
Okay. Now, in terms of remote working, because a lot of organizations, not every organization, but a lot of organizations have moved to remote working because it's possible. I do understand that some organizations just don't have the technology available. They don't have the laptops or, facilities for people to be working from home. But have you found any particular challenges from the team or any feedback from the team of things that are either working for team members being remote, or things that are maybe people are finding challenging, especially maybe more junior members of team who have never had to work from home before?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think firstly, a lot of our staff live in multi-generational homes, and so the homes actually aren't, they're not that. It's difficult for them to have some privacy and to work, and particularly if mum or grandma's telling you you've got to do the washing or do jobs around the house. So I think that's been a challenge for some of our staff. I think it's very unusual, right? It's very unusual for their families to have their family members home. I think secondly, some of the a very good example actually. A lot of our staff, I would say most, didn't have home internet, and so that we provide free data and a SIM, but they were finding it difficult, particularly those who were using data-heavy applications and so on, to get enough bandwidth. And so we've put in place now a 40,000 chat per month internet policy. We give it to all staff, and we say to them, it's up to you. You can go and get decent internet for 40,000 chat a month. And so a lot of our staff, but if they want to spend that, they can spend it. But don't complain then about the internet. So, but a lot of our staff have used it to actually go and get new fibre connections or what have you, which I think has been very good for them, and they are very appreciative of that as well.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, and I think a lot of people don't realise that in some countries around the world, Myanmar being a good example, as you say, people live in multi-generational households. People don't have, or not everybody has, huge amounts of space to be able to even find anywhere quiet to work as well. So I think it's difficult. I think it will build resilience in the end for people. When things calm down, people come back to work. And I'm always interested to actually, I put something on LinkedIn yesterday, actually, just a thought of mine that, a few months ago, last year, certainly people were saying that, remote working from home is the way it will go. Nobody likes to go to an office. Everyone wants to be working from home. And I think it will be an interesting mix because, of course, I think people like flexibility. I've always worked from home. I find it easy. Sometimes I find it very difficult other times. But I think there will be certainly some people who are really missing the team and will probably be counting down the days till they can get back to the office as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is something that we're very conscious of. I mean, the Wave office is a very friendly, high energy place, and a lot of people are missing that. There's a lot of friendship groups that I see in the company, and I think people are missing that opportunity to mix and socialise, which it sort of leads to another point really around safety and health and safety, and that really is the mental well-being of staff.
Yeah.
And
psychological safety. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things I've said to my leaders is, you must understand, the reason I tell them to understand every individual circumstance is that they need to be checking in and make sure that their people are okay. So, I mean, one of the things we do at the leadership team level is I'll send them, my leadership team, most weekdays around about 6 o'clock as 5:36 as they're finishing. They're not allowed to use 7. It's going to be a 6 or 8. And it actually gives me a really good, just a quick check-in to see how they're tracking on a daily basis. And I really am very pleased about it. They're all very transparent. We've had a tough day, then we know who needs support essentially over the next 24 hours.
Great. Yeah, it's difficult. I think also this whole aspect of people who are more introverted, people who are more extroverted, and you're going to have a big mix in your team. I was again thinking the other day that you know, a lot of people think that those who are more introverted are going to be loving working from home because there's less distractions. But actually, if you're in a household with a large number of family, if you've got Zoom calls 5 times a day that you're expected to be on, actually a lot of more introverted people are probably struggling just as much as the extroverts who aren't in the team environment. So yeah, challenging for everyone. Are you currently, I mean, you're currently working from home, or you're not going into the office yourself at all? You're just at home?
Not at all. In fact, anyone who goes in the office needs permission of our chief risk officer. So,
okay.
So we've got very few people going in there. But no, I've been working from home now since 23rd of March. You know, I find that I'm so busy during the day and even on the weekends that it sort of occupies. But yeah, I think it's everyone else is having different experiences. I think. I mean, one of the things we said to staff is that, you know, you need to. I used the change curve. You know, the sort of denial, the anger, and so on. And I used that curve really to say to them, you know, you need to find a way to get yourself to acceptance as quickly as you can, because you may. I did this in a company-wide town hall. You know, because really, you know, you may find yourself getting frustrated with co-workers. You may find yourself sort of saying, well, we'll be back in the office next week. The reality is we're not going to be back in the office next week.
Sure.
And the sooner you accept the situation where it is, the better you'll feel. So.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we're all experiencing those different emotions. As you say, some people are in denial or still looking sort of too positively that, as you say, everything will be sort of, you know, back to normal next week. Other people are panicking still. So I think it's about being agile, isn't it? And it's about being flexible and accepting that we don't know what we don't know at the moment. Having, you know, I think the way the brain works, as we know, is, you know, it's almost better to be honest and say we don't know what's happening than to have no certainty. So, I mean, you've always been quite an agile organization. You have a number of sort of agile approaches. How do you think that has helped you as an organization to cope with this situation?
I certainly think it's helped. I mean, in terms of our devs and our product teams, you know, when I've actually asked the leaders of their team, they actually feel they become even more productive because the meetings become more focused and you know, and they were sitting next to each other previously. So I think it's definitely helped. And certainly, I mean, the mindset change that last week I spoke to my team about was that there was a need now to move back, you know, move past the shock and horror, or not horror so much, shock and dislodgement, and move into a performance stage. Yes. So we're very much now around pushing for performance, and even with the constraints we have, making sure that we're performing well. Yeah,
fantastic. Now, in terms of the future, once things settle down, hopefully, we don't know when, how do you think the challenges that you've been through as a leader and the team have been through, how do you think that will help in the future when, you know, when things are back to a so-called normal?
I mean, I think one of the first things we're going to have to actually question ourselves on is the way of work we were operating to the most appropriate. You know, I think we're going to have to really look at whether we continue to work partly remotely. You know, whether we have some teams working remotely. You know, we're growing very fast, and looking at more real estate, but you know, perhaps we don't need to do that. Perhaps we actually just look at the way our team works and operates and become more efficient around the way we work remotely. So I think that's one big question mark we're going to have. I think really understanding. I think another big thing is going to be around automation. So we identified really that, and some of this is the constraints in the Myanmar system, but you know, things like check processing. You know, we still had to have people physically at work in the office doing check processing and in the back office. So I think, you know, I can see us actually really looking at automating a lot of those things that are today manual, so that you know, we have the ability to work remotely completely. And then lastly, I think, you know, what we're seeing in Myanmar, and it's quite extraordinary living here at the moment, because you know, the digitization wave that's happening here is amazing. Right? So restaurants, companies, all going online, all needing payment, you know, and it's happening so rapidly. and the adaptation and innovation. So I think we see a much faster digitisation path in general, and we need to be prepared in terms of actually getting onto that and making sure we exploit that
Right.
as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a bit of short-term, hopefully, discomfort, I think it really pushes us all outside of our comfort zones for the better, hopefully. I know there's going to be some businesses who unfortunately are going to fail or struggle. Hopefully that's a small number. But for those who can, keep things going at the moment, I think it will be an opportunity. I mean, certainly it's pushed us to look to put more stuff online, because we've always been face-to-face learning. We've been coaching virtually before, but it's certainly been a big push for us to look at how to do that in the best way. So I suppose lastly, Brad, advice for any other leaders, company owners, managers. There's going to be some people out there who are still struggling, who still are trying to get things together at the moment, and probably still in a bit of a state of panic. What advice would you give them to smooth things and to get people working effectively at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think it's picking up on a couple of points I talked about today. I think firstly, it's getting to that point of acceptance. Yes. And getting to a way of work, and both on a personal and a business level. I mean, I must admit, I wasn't the best exerciser in the world before this came along, but I now, in my condo complex, I don't go outside the condo complex, but I'm doing exercise every morning for about an hour, and I'm finding that that's actually helping me mentally. Yeah. And so this has forced me to get some more balance into my own life personally. Sure. So I think that moving to that point of acceptance, okay, if I'm going to be locked down here for a little bit longer, then I need to actually get outside of my apartment, or I'm only doing 150 steps a day. So
sure. Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I think secondly, it's this whole point around over communication and understanding your people. And some organisations that are very big, that gets tougher and tougher. But as a 250 person organisation, we should be able to, myself and my leaders should be able to actually say how every single person is from a physical and mental health perspective, and whether they're gainfully employed at any stage, or whether they have any personal issues that are impacting their performance. Okay. And then I think lastly, looking for the opportunities, and we're doing a lot of work there at the moment, trying to sort of imagine what a future Myanmar looks like, and as the saying goes, skating to where the puck is going rather than where it is. And so I think they're the key things. Look after staff, over communicate, get to that point of acceptance, and the opportunities.
Fantastic. I like your the skate where the puck is going. Yeah. Did you, just out of interest, did you used to skate? Any skating background?
No, but I lived in Canada for a while, and ice hockey is obviously huge over there. So I think it's a quite attributed to Wayne Gretzky, actually, right, for the ice skating superstar. So
fantastic. Well, thank you for your time, Brad. I know, even though it's I think it's Labor Day in Myanmar at the moment, it's a public holiday, but for you, obviously, I'm sure you don't have many public holidays. But thanks for your time. Great points, and good luck. Obviously, at the moment, I'm in the UK temporarily. I'll be back as soon as I can, but hopefully catch up with you and the team soon.
Great. Thanks, Ian.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brad.